everybody, it's Ellen here. So tonight I am going to make gluten-free meatballs. It is one of our favorites in our house, and so I'm making them in advance for a special visitor coming this weekend, and they're especially for her. So I thought I would share with you. All right, so when it comes to gluten-free, years ago, I was diagnosed with celiac, and so I had to make a pivot, right, and start eating gluten-free. And I learned some things very quickly. One, gluten-free food, when you're buying mixes and things like that, is a lot more expensive than regular food. Two, a lot of these pre-made mixes have a lot of ingredients that I can't pronounce, which bums me out. And three, there are some things that are just downright impossible to find. And one of them is gluten-free meatballs. Now they do have some gluten-free meatballs in the freezer section. And let me tell you, it is the smallest bag of gluten-free meatballs and it's like $10. And so we eat it all in one sitting. I'm like, $10 just for the meatballs. Usually like we don't, yeah, we cook on a budget, right? And so we usually don't spend quite that much. Like sometimes I can feed the whole family for $10, let alone just to be one part of the meal. So anyways, but what I found, and I'll always share with you whenever I have a brand or just anything like that I just absolutely love. But what I found as far as stuffing goes, because we went a couple years without stuffing, trying to figure out like a good gluten-free stuffing because everything was just awful. But this is a great brand. Oh, it's so good. The Alexa's. And so this one here is the savory version. Okay. And so what I have done is I went ahead and because I've already made a batch today, because when I make meatballs, we make a lot of meatballs. So I just have like a little bit left that I still have yet to pull together. And that's what I'm doing for you tonight. Okay. Hopefully this doesn't fall. All right. So what I did was I took this stuffing is kind of that cubed stuffing, right? Now, if you're not gluten-free, the stuffing that I recommend for this recipe in particular is Pepperidge Farm herbed stuffing. Hello, if you haven't had it, it's amazing. It is so flipping good. It is such a good stuffing. So I was so bummed out when I couldn't find a substitute for it, right? For this meatball recipe, but this is a great substitute. So it's that cubed stuffing. And I soak it, right? I would go ahead and I soak it in milk. Now, not only are we gluten-free, but we have lactose intolerance in the house too. So I do use a milk substitute for that too. And so I've used lactate in the past. Right now I've been using Fairlife. It's a great substitute, lactose-free, and it's awesome. You can get it fat-free, you can get it whatever it is that you're looking for. But it's a great substitution. So I soaked this and because it comes naked and then you put the herb pack in and then I just soaked it in the milk. So I soaked that and I need to grab a spoon. Thought I had everything. All right, so I'm gonna, but what I'm gonna do, I don't want big chunks of like breading in my meatballs. So I'm gonna put it right here in our chopper and it is perfect for that. It's gonna make it like this wonderful mush, right? Which normally you wouldn't use the word wonderful and mush in the same sentence when it comes to food. But when it comes to this stuff, when it comes to mixing that breading in with meat, you definitely want it to be a mush. So it just gets nice in there and coats it so you don't have like a big mouthful of breading, right? All right, so I'm just gonna put this right into our chopper. Oh wait, you know what? I want to chop an onion first. All right, let me chop the onion first. I'm just gonna toss some onion in there. Oh, not the egg. And just toss the onion in there, and I'm gonna chop the onion because I like fresh onion and stuff. I could add onion seasoning. So if you don't have a fresh onion, you can definitely add dried onion, or you can add onion powder, but I love fresh as much as I can use it. And in a recipe like this, it'll just add more moisture to your meatball. All right. Right. So, and I want it nice and fine. I don't want a big hunk of onion in there, right? So I'm going to actually leave the onion in there, and then I'm just going to add the breading to it. And then I'm going to chop that all together, and it's going to be delicious. That way the onion will be nice and mixed in there. So I'm going to just push this breading right in here. Love. Yeah, we already ate some for dinner. I have some in the freezer for this weekend. This is another batch. My daughter, after we ate all that I had set aside for dinner, she's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat later. She is like burning so many calories right now. She's working out like a crazy person, and she is just, you know, fall sports coming to a head. So she's doing all kinds of stuff. So she is eating. All right. So I'm going to have all that in this chopper, right? And I'm just going to do quick little pulls, right? Because I have a decent amount of stuff in there. So I don't want to like too hard, too far. It just makes it harder for me. All right. Look at that. Beautiful mush. I love it. All right. And I am going to crack an egg and add that. Again, eggs just add a little bit more moisture. If you're making meatloaf or anything along those lines, I'm going to wash my hands real quick. Eggs just help make it more moist. So I love adding eggs to my meatloaf and definitely to my meatballs. So you don't have to. You don't want to, but I do find that the egg definitely helps. All right, so this is nice and watery, which is just what I want it to be to add to my hamburger meat. All right, and so I'm just going to put that right in there. All right, take the blade out. So easy, guys. It's easy, it's quick. I mean, like I said, I make great big batches of this, and then they freeze beautifully. So you can add these meatballs. This is actually a Swedish meatball recipe, but when my kids were little, they didn't like the Swedish meatball sauce. So I started just making it without the sauce. And at the time, I couldn't figure out how to make the sauce dairy-free or lactose-free for my husband. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. We'll do it that way. So, and then I'm just going to mix this up. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. All right. And you just want to do that to taste. I always find I need more salt on these meatballs. All right. I'm going to just mix this up. And right now you're like, oh my God, there's a lot of breading, but don't worry, it'll mix up nicely. And if it doesn't, I have more meat. All right. I can just add that. No biggie. Because remember, I split this recipe up, so I may have added a little bit too much stuffing. Looks pretty good. And I cook it in butter. So I already have some butter over here in my pans. And let me tell you, so I've been making this recipe for years. And it was my mom's recipe. Maybe my grandma's recipe. I don't know, but I've been making this recipe for years. And before Tupperware, and a lot of times I have like 3-4 fry pans going at once. All right. I know there's lots of different ways to make meatballs, and I've tried them in the oven. I've tried them all the different ways. I still find cooking them on the stovetop makes them the best. They're not as dry, and they're just like super tasty, probably because of the butter, right? Let's be real. But what I found was before Tupperware, right, I had different fry pans. And I never fully understood, like I just thought this was the way all fry pans worked. And I never understood that my fry pan was not heating evenly, right? I thought it was my stovetop, or I thought it was just, that was just the way fry pans work, right? Then when I started in Tupperware and I started using our cookware that has like the aluminum core and all of that with the even heating, I could not believe. It was funny because I only had one fry pan in the beginning. And so I would have one fry pan with meatballs. I'd have the Tupperware fry pan with meatballs, and then I have my other fry pan with meatballs. And inevitably I'd burn the other fry pan because I wouldn't be paying attention. I'd be flipping the meatballs and doing all of that. And the one fry pan, nothing was burning. And then the other one, like half of them would be burnt and half of them would be raw. And I was like, what? Like, so I just keep rotating the pan and the meatballs and all those things. And I realized it was actually the pan. It wasn't me, and it wasn't the way it had to be. It was the pan. So good pans definitely make a big difference. All right. See, it did turn out. Look at that. Yum. Okay. So another game changer in our kitchen is when we got our scooper. Oh my God, stop it right now. When I used to make this recipe, I would have hands covered in gross, like hamburger grossness, whatever, the fat and yuckiness. It would take me like 4 times washing them with like oil cutting soap to get all of it off my hands. I have to take my rings off. I have to do everything. I made all these meatballs today, and my hands were completely clean. Did not touch a bit of the meat. I was like, stop it right now. This is so amazing. So this is our little scooper, right? And we have 3 different size scoops, right? This is the big one. I use the medium one for this. Sometimes I use the small one to make little itty bitty meatballs because that's the way we made them growing up. We had them like super duper small. And I used to always like be like, oh man, I ate 12 meatballs. Like I was super excited because, you know, I was like Ella, right? I was always burning it so quickly. So I was always eating. All right, so I'm gonna turn this on, and then I am going to start making my meatballs, right? And you're gonna see how easy this is. So all I do is I just put it right in there, and I actually take a spoon just to push it down, just to make sure, and I just take the edges off. And then I just put it right in the fry pan. Look at that. Look, Mom, clean hands. What? It's so amazing and so fast. I would spend hours rolling meatballs, like, and I'm not even kidding you. There was one time, because I was 9 months pregnant and I was making meatballs in my kitchen for a special somebody's birthday meal, because this is what they always requested. And I didn't want them to feel like, now that there's a new baby, they're not getting their birthday meal, right? So what do we do as moms? Standing there with my feet swollen to the point I couldn't even tell where my legs stopped and my feet began, making meatballs for hours and rolling them out. And look how quick and easy this is. I mean, seriously, I've made like, I don't know, 7 or 8 meatballs in the last like 60 seconds. Like, what? Amazing. All right, my stove's not completely even, so I got to make sure my butter gets all over the pan. One of those little nuisances of life, right? All right, so look at this, so easy. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna fry these up. I'm just gonna turn them. I usually turn them like, I think 2 times. 2 times I turn them, and I just make sure they're cooked all the way through, and that's it. Now, if you wanted to make the Swedish sauce that goes with it, you can just add some flour to it, create a nice little roux with the pan drippings and all the nice little like crispy chunks on the bottom that are so delicious and add so much flavor to a sauce. And you add, I want to say, like, I haven't made it in years, but I think like maybe like some beef broth and some more seasonings and some milk. And then that's it. Just let it thicken up and you have your Swedish sauce. But these meatballs are so great. You can put them in with your spaghetti sauces, your red sauces, any of that type of stuff. And it's going to make it so unbelievably good. So that's it. That's as simple as it is. But let me show you what I cooked earlier. Right, so these are going into the freezer. So this is what they look like when they're done. They look like tasty meatballs, and they're gluten-free, and they cost a fraction of what they should. They cost as much as a regular meatball, which is amazing for somebody who's gluten-free. So thank you guys. Enjoy.